Welcome to Private Club Radio, your weekly source for industry education, news and discussion. Broadcasting from Tampa, Florida, ladies and gentlemen, here is your host, Gabriel Aloisi.
Hey, welcome to Private Club Radio. It's good to have you. On today's episode, we're going to peel back the curtain on what it's really like to be inside a boardroom, contemplating your options, having to make the tough decisions to move your club forward, to preserve your club, to make sure it stays relevant for the next decade and beyond. We're joined by Peter Nanula on this episode. Peter is going to also tell us about the Club Corp deal for all you folks who were wondering what happened there. You may have heard Concert Golf was in talks with Club Corp to buy their portfolio of clubs. You'll find out what happened there for the curious. And we're going to have two gentlemen from the Fountains, a country club down in South Florida, talking about what it was like to go through a capital injection process with Concert Golf Partners. I think it's absolutely fascinating discussion that we have today because you really feel the rhythm and the passion that happens inside of a boardroom. And I don't think you get that anywhere else unless you're literally inside of a boardroom. This is your next best option. So I hope you enjoyed today's chat with Peter Nanula and Fountains Country Club.
And now it's time for Board Chats, presented by Concert Golf Partners. A behind-the-scenes look inside real boardrooms with special guest Peter Nanula.
Welcome to another edition of Board Chats, where we chat with actual board members of equity member-owned clubs. We're going to talk real-world experiences in the boardroom, dealing with board strategy and management issues. It's your behind-the-scenes look into the boardroom. It's brought to you, as always, by Concert Golf Partners, who bring capital and club hospitality expertise to preserve and enhance private clubs for the long term. I'm joined, as always, by Peter Nanula. And Peter, first question for you. I want to talk to you about this Club Corp deal. What happened there, man?
Yeah. Sorry to throw everyone a curveball, but Club Corp approached us earlier this year. The concept was to create an elite clubs division together. It just didn't come together as we all hoped. We make a lot of written commitments to our members, and we had to make sure those are going to be honored. There's always price and terms and softer issues involved in these kind of deals. It just wasn't the right fit. On both sides. And they've had some management change and probably different strategy discussions at their company as well. But good news is we haven't really missed a beat. I mean, it was a distraction for a few months, but our 18 clubs are ahead of our business plans this year so far. And we're adding another great new club in a couple of weeks. So, knock wood, no more of that, but onward and upward. Yeah, well, you got to be true to yourself, and it sounds like you guys did that in this scenario. And so my hat's off to you guys and, giving it the old college try, but sometimes it just doesn't work out. Exactly.
Now, I'm really excited to speak with a couple board members from the Fountains Country Club. That's a new acquisition from Concert Golf Partners. We're going to be speaking with Jeff Hamburger and Paul Knapp. I'm going to give you guys their bio here. So Jeff Hamburger is a financial advisor in New Jersey. He's the board president at Fountains Country Club. He's been the board president since 2016, and he actually ran the process of getting new capital into the club. Now, Paul Knapp is the former CFO of Miller Brewing in Milwaukee. I was actually up in Milwaukee when I was speaking to the CMAA Wisconsin a couple months ago and got a tour of the facility. That was really neat. He's been on the board at Fountains since 2016. He was also part of getting the new capital into the club. So, gentlemen, welcome to Private Club Radio.
Thank you. Hello. Good to be aboard. Hello, Gabe.
Yeah. Well, my first question I'm going to direct towards you, Paul. I'd love to get a little taste of the history of Fountains and what makes your club so special and so unique.
Well, the Fountains started in the early 70s with a private developer. And he developed basically 18 holes to start, then add another 9 holes later on. And eventually, in the early 80s, he went bankrupt. At that time, the club was doing very well, and several of the members got together and and bought the club out of bankruptcy. During that time, they also enjoyed the club so much they bought some land to the south and added another 27 holes to make it a 54-hole facility through the 80s and all the way into the 2010s, 2015, up to 2016, I believe. So the club initially started very, very well. It was predominantly an all-Jewish club. That changed in the late 90s to early 2000s to where all members are accepted, and I'm actually a testament to that, being non-Jewish. At one point in time, they actually elected me, a Polish kid from Wisconsin, president of the club. So it was very accepting of all people, and we had very, very good membership. Our membership was our key. During the early 2000s, around 2003, the club went to mandatory membership, which basically said anybody who buys a property in the Fountains needed to be a member, otherwise they couldn't buy. That went well during the boom time in Florida, but as almost all clubs in Florida found out, when the real estate crunch hit, mandatory membership didn't work so well.
Right.
We found we were losing members. Home prices were low, and they were so low that people who could afford them couldn't afford to be a member. So our membership dropped. Our club was aging, and in the 2012 to 2016 range, we found we were in a vicious circle, if you will. We still had a great membership. We still had people who cared about each other, but as we lost members, the burden on the members remaining got higher and higher and higher. So a lot of them, as they were aging, couldn't afford to be members anymore. Again, that was a circle that we had to get out of, and the board decided at one point in time to try to close a golf course, which we did. We didn't need 54 holes, and then we tried to sell some of the land to local developers, which basically was a good plan. Unfortunately, we didn't have the capital or the horses to pull it off. As we were trying to sell the land, we went further and further into the pockets of our members, which again got them more upset. In 2017, I believe, we gave our club members two options. Basically, try again to sell the land on our own and go alone, or go with Concert Golf. And I believe it was 97%, Jeff, you might correct me on that, voted in favor of going with Concert Golf. And which then allowed several things that are great benefits to our members, which are, one, Concert Golf has eliminated mandatory membership, which has raised the prices of our homes. They've greatly reduced the dues, and I'm sure Jeff can explain to you how exciting it is going to your members and say you're raising the dues by $5,000 or $6,000 and having them truly, truly enjoy that. Not. and then when we talked about Concert Golf and talked about the reduction in dues, Jeff actually got some applause as he mentioned that, which was great. Since then, since we voted to sell to Concert Golf, Concert has come in and in my estimation, they've done a great job. But I think Jeff could really add on to that, how the members stand after Concert Golf took over.
Yeah, well, basically, we had a core group of members who were not originally in favor of us going with Concert Golf because they wanted to remain a upscale private club, for lack of a better way of putting it. We were looking at going to 27 holes, moving the clubhouse. We were looking at all kinds of avenues, but unfortunately, we didn't have a good relationship with our bank. And we had always had a great relationship. Matter of fact, at one point, the bank said they were our partner. And we were switched to another relationship manager of the bank. And when we said, well, we need this help to get through so we can do get the real estate deal done, the response we got is, well, we're not your partner, we're your lender. And they started putting roadblocks in our way and basically delayed our deal to close with the real estate developer we had found to hopefully give us the capital we needed to move forward. Then I was looking at another situation where there had to be another major assessment. Our dues at this point were above average for the area, and more of our members were complaining. We had kind of a dues strike. We were over 100 members didn't pay their dues. We had a series of lawsuits going on, which were not popular, and that also takes time because the courts don't act quickly. And as things were going on, I kept getting calls from my CFO that we weren't going to make payroll. And I knew we had some problems. And Peter and I then started talking. We were talking with another individual at the same time. And I always liked Peter. He was straightforward, was willing to offer us a solution. And it took time. And as Paul said, then when we brought it to the members, we wound up having, I think the vote was 420 to 13. 13 members, and we actually know who they are. They were the loudest ones and the biggest complainers who voted not to do the deal. What they didn't know is if we didn't do the deal, and Peter knew this, and Paul knew this, we probably wouldn't be around today because we lost full cooperation of the bank, and they're ready to jump on and call our loans, which was
Jeff, let me break in here.
Anytime.
One of the things we tried to do, because Jeff talked about our relationship with the bank, was we found a different bank, one that would deal with us. I think another name for that bank would be Loan Shark. The deal they gave us was a really, really good deal for them. So we, even though finding capital for a country club or loans in today's world is not easy. And if you do, you're going to pay unbelievable rates and give up a lot of what you wanted to keep in the first place.
If you don't mind me jumping in here, just wind back the clock a little bit. So you guys are in Lake Worth, Florida. Just a little bit of a picture of the community itself. Just let's get the context for the club. How many homes, How many subdivisions? What are we talking about in terms of the Fountains community?
Well, we have about 1,700 homes and 19 subdivisions. And Peter, as you have learned, that's our other problem. The way the owner set up our property here, the country club wasn't in charge of all the subdivisions, and we had another division set up called the FCO, Fountain Condo Operations, I think it's called, Paul. And we didn't get along with them. We didn't get along. They were using our property. We're not maintaining our property. And we had another legal thing with them. Our legal bills were getting higher and higher every month, where we had to go to arbitration. And the arbitration process also is not quick. We eventually won the arbitration after we closed the deal with Concert. Whatever that was, it was like it was a nice victory, but it didn't mean much. But they were another reason we were having trouble moving forward because they were preventing us from getting members. And you need membership to survive.
All right, so this is Peter again. Let me ask, let's just recap, because the number of issues that you guys were facing at the Fountains is broader than a lot of other clubs. I mean, there's a lot you have in common with other clubs we meet, but I would say the list of issues you had was probably longer than most. So one, your HOA situation with the club was not cordial, and you were in litigation and then arbitration over that. Number two, you had a bank lender issue with your bank. Let's pull that one apart, because most clubs have borrowed some money from a local bank to do improvements and things. What was the origin of the club doing borrowings? When did you do it? What were the funds used for? How much money did you borrow?
We had two basic loans with the bank. One was a $13 million loan that we used for renovation for our clubhouse and fitness center in about 2008. And that was a fixed rate loan that we fixed the rate using a swap. But we fixed the rate at 6.65%. And as you all know, the interest rate has never been close to that over the years. So we basically fixed the rate at a higher rate than we should have been paying. The second loan started out as a $2.5 million line of credit, and got reduced to $2 million. What happened?
What was the money for? What did you use the money for?
Well, here, this is the bad part. A line of credit is supposed to be used temporarily for when you have short-term cash needs. For example, if you have a hurricane in the summer and you need to clean up, you use the line of credit. If you think about our line of credit, since we collect all our dues at the beginning of the year, and we have a zero balance budget, we should never need any kind of credit except for short-term needs. The problem was our previous boards used the line of credit to make up for shortfalls in operating expenses or capital needs that weren't collected for. So we wound up basically having a $2 million line of credit that was basically fixed, because we weren't collecting money for it, but we maxed it out. And in last July, we maxed out our line of credit, and we still had a good portion of the $13 million loan. And the bank got very nervous because of our bad debt write-off, because people weren't paying their dues, and they started reneging on a lot of what they told us, and sent us emails saying they would do, saying that was not legal and not right. So that's when we started to have real issues. Was July of last year.
Okay, so this is Peter again. I'm just playing quarterback here. So you've got challenges with the HOA. You've got your bank becoming more difficult. And then you mentioned you had 54 holes. Didn't really need 54 holes. Tell me about the process around the club or around the board table of making the decision to close down 18 of your holes and try to, I understand, recapture some cash from that in order to fix some of your other problems. How did that start, and how did that go?
Paul was president at the time, and I actually had me chair that committee. So we both did it together. It was a very tough process, because the course we closed was our North Golf Course, and we all liked it. It was the course pros used when they came here, but we just decided that if we're going to close a course, that was one we should be looking at, because most of our members live on the south, where our other two courses are. But we went through the process, we went through the numbers, and it wasn't so much fitted to save money. We wound up taking the dollars we were saving on that course and reinvesting in our other two golf courses, because what was happening to our budget over the years is we kept neglecting our golf courses. We were never putting any money into the golf courses. Our average per hole when we did a survey with the other courses in Palm Beach County, we were below average what we were spending, and our course looked like it. So by closing down that course, reallocating those funds to the other two courses, we were able to give our greenskeeper the money he needed to bring it to the proper level. And then we would have that land available to sell to a developer. And we had no lack of developers come in to give us bidding for that land, because this is a very popular area for building right now. So that was the process. The process wasn't so much to save money, it was to reallocate the funds.
All right. So then you went out to local real estate developers to try to buy that land. And
National real estate developers, yeah.
Nationals. And so what happened there in a short summary?
Paul, you can take care of that one. You handle those.
Yeah, I can handle. We actually got what we figured was a pretty good price for approximately 9 holes of land on our North Golf Course. And we validated that by getting an appraisal from a company that does golf course appraisals. We went to the members and basically we had a plan that we thought was very good. We'd close the North Course, we'd sell approximately 9 holes, leaving 9 holes available for development in the future. We would get, in that case, the deal was for $17 million. The developer decided they were going to build apartments on one piece of the land and single-family homes on the other. We had a deal where the single-family homes would automatically become members of the Fountains Country Club for a sports membership. There was quite a lot good about the deal, and we took this to the members, and they voted overwhelmingly for the deal. Probably the cadre of members that voted against it were the ones that were going to have their golf course views be homes and apartments. But it was still an overwhelmingly approved idea. The problem was in the getting that deal going. First of all, Palm Beach County is not very easy to get approval on anything. Particularly, we had a hard time getting approval from the Palm Beach County water utility. It took us 18 months to get final approval, and part of the final approval was we had to build another lake, if you will, to replace the holding pond that was going away. That cost us $600,000 that we didn't have. So while the deal was working and going through, if we were better capitalized, we could have overcome. We wound up sinking us further into the hole, which is where the deal with Concert came in. Concert has the money; they can handle that kind of thing that we couldn't because of this various state that we were in financially.
Yeah. So good segue into you're juggling about 4 or 5 balls, as I can tell. I'm trying to keep them all up in the air just listening to you. And what's happening with membership? Probably a dozen balls in the air. So Gabe, you're listening thinking this is one of the more complicated situations ever. So what's happening with membership trends and sort of financial trends at a high level? The board is also managing at the same time.
We had a survival. Matter of fact, as Paul said, we found out we needed money to build this lake, and we didn't have the capital. Then we went to our partners at the bank, had a very cordial, had a great meeting with them, at which point they said they'll give us everything we want, and they were going to give us a loan to build the lake. And the loan itself would not have been due until we closed the real estate deals. Very friendly loan. And I had a closing at an attorney's office on a Thursday at 9 o'clock to sign all the paperwork. And at 5 o'clock Wednesday, right before the closing, I get an email, not even a phone call, that the closing has been canceled. And that's when the other division of the bank took over and basically pulled the loan out from under us. And
to more directly answer your question, Peter, what was happening was, again, the vicious circle. As our dues went up to try and cover our costs and the necessary costs for the loan and everything else, our membership dropped. So as our membership dropped, the burden on each and individual member became higher and higher, which caused more members to have to drop because they couldn't afford it.
And we had a lot of angry members.
Oh yeah. Believe me, you you did not want to get up in front of these members, Jeff. Did you ever want to get up in front of these guys? I didn't.
No, I didn't have one of those meetings.
Yes. No, I was witness to some of the dynamic. Wait, last issue that not every club deals with. One of you mentioned the mandatory membership, and this is a big issue in the state of Florida. My understanding is the community did not start out back in the 60s or 70s as a mandatory membership community. You added it on in the early 2000s to support the club amenity. Let's make sure everyone has at least a social
Peter,
membership, right?
And the club started out, because I knew about it then, because I was my in-laws lived here, and it was the exact opposite situation. There was a waiting list for members. They didn't need mandatory membership.
Wow.
People wanted to belong here. Every house, when the house sold, the house had a membership, and it went with the house. And people were very upset if they couldn't join here. It was popular. They didn't need mandatory membership. Mandatory membership really came in, Paul, if I'm not mistaken, because we wanted to go ahead and do this major improvement, and they wanted to make sure that we had the members to pay the loan. That was the bank actually required it.
No.
Okay, I'm a little off there. Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, you're a little off. You're right that the bank relied on mandatory membership for the revenue stream for the loan, but mandatory membership came in 2003, and back then it was very popular in Florida country clubs. If you think back to 2003, real estate was going crazy, especially Florida and Arizona. The prices were going higher and higher and higher. And each club saw mandatory membership as a way to do two things. One is to maintain a revenue stream into the future, which is what Jeff was talking about. But two, also to make certain that only people who could afford membership could belong and move into your community. So that was a two-pronged thing, and it.
And then what happened? So how did all this litigation start?
Well, what happened was the Fountains never instituted true mandatory membership. Their mandatory membership was you can be what you want to be right now. So if, say, there was a person who was a member, he'd be a member. If the person who wasn't a member didn't have to be a member. He had to sell when he sold his home, he or she, they had to sell to a member. That was our form of mandatory membership. Well, what happened was in the real estate crunch about 2008 or so, with the fact that people had to sell to members, 9 of our associations decided they wanted to get out of this mandatory membership deal. And to do that, they sued. The club didn't think they could because of what they had in their bylaws and court documents. That went to a court suit. The nine communities sued the club to get out of mandatory membership. We had a trial. The club lost. We took it to appeal. the club lost then. So now we have 9 courts, 9 HOAs who no longer have mandatory membership. Also, 2 others joined in the same thing, although they didn't sue us, but they also declared non-mandatory. So now we have a mixed bag, if you will, of 9 courts, 9 HOAs, non-mandatory. 10, we had 19 in total, 10 mandatory, and people were now selling their homes to non-members. There were members who were selling their homes to non-members. We also had a very interesting issue where people who lived in a now a non-mandatory HOA who were members sold their home to a non-mandatory, to a non-member, and moved into the South and remained a member of the 10 courts that were mandatory membership. So we lost membership that way. So that was kind of the beginning of the end of holding any concept of having a stable membership.
Okay. So let me try to summarize. This is Peter. Gabe, trying to keep track of all this, you see what the board was dealing with. So
what a mess. What a mess. I'm enjoying,
right?
I'm enjoying just listening to this. This is crazy.
These guys had the hardest job of any board I've ever heard of. But we came in, we agreed with the board to pay off all their debt from the bank. A little bit of negotiation there, but that happened pretty quickly. So now the club is debt-free. This happened in the spring. We agreed to take on this whole North Course real estate thing, which is a lot of excess land, developers, home builders, approvals, a lot of money being spent with lawyers and engineers and all of that sort of stuff. That's going to take several years to work through, that we have the time and the capital and the expertise to deal with. But when Jeff and Paul and their board were trying to juggle all this, pretty tough. A lot of money getting spent, a lot of time, a lot of turmoil. We got rid of the mandatory membership requirement in the remaining parts of the Fountains community. They had already successfully gotten rid of it at some parts of the community. So overnight, you no longer had to be a member of the club. And because that extra expensive dues requirement was no longer a tax on you as a homeowner in the community, home prices in the community went up pretty dramatically. And the realtors tell me that they were able to start selling homes like hotcakes again. So that was a big move. Then, as one of you guys said, we lowered the dues. They had crept up to the point where they were sort of out of the market pricing toward $20,000 a year, whereas the market pricing, was probably somewhere in the 11, 12, 14,000 range. We reduced the dues. We settled all the litigation. There were 24 outstanding lawsuits. All but 2 or 3 of those are now gone. And, when you look at the financials and the membership now, believe it or not, the club has no debt. We've added 50 plus members already to the club in different categories, and the club is profitable again, and we're off to the races. It's a long road, but I would say the turnaround in the past 4 months has been pretty dramatic. What about the aftermath of all this, Paul and Jeff? Did I not explain?
Well, the aftermath is basically, so far you've done what you said you're going to do. We've got a lot of happy members here. We just saw the entertainment schedule come out a couple weeks ago, and people actually thought it was better than expected. They're still waiting to see some of the capital. But I know it takes time to do the planning and get those things going, and I know things are in motion for some capital expenditures. Our golf courses are in the best shape they've been in years, and I said my membership's happy.
Yeah, we've got drawings for the new swimming pool complex that we're working through, and I think that's going to be the biggest win of all. But you're right, it takes some time to get that all approved by the county and start putting that in place. Gabe, you've heard a long saga here. What else would be interesting to your listeners?
Yeah, well, I would just love to know, would you guys recommend Concert Golf, or would you recommend clubs go through a similar process if they've got some of these issues that you guys have faced?
Well, I can tell you, going through the process, we did our due diligence, and the reason we did extra due diligence here is 3.5, 4 years ago, Paul, we got involved with Kemper. And,
Right.
And we thought we did our due diligence there, and we brought in a management company, and that kind of was the start of our downfall, I think. Kemper's got a great reputation on managing golf courses, but I don't think they can ever manage a property like ours, and they never really understood who we were. So before we got involved in this deal, and we didn't want to be another Kemper, the board set out, and we actually visited, I'm going to say, 7 or 8 of your properties, Peter, to get hands-on of what they've done, and we felt very comfortable. There wasn't one property we went to where we got bad reviews. When I look back now, I mean, this is my first conference call I've had in a long time, where Paul and I basically lived on the telephone, conference calls, meetings. Our board meetings were, as you can tell by all the issues we had going, were never smooth. For the last, 3 to 4 years, Paul, we've been having fun like that. And then when we had to have meetings with our members, which we try to keep them informed, there was always that group of members that didn't make it a comfortable day. And then Paul and I had to go for cocktails afterwards to relax.
That's funny. Jeff, I got one last question for you. If you've got one lesson, one takeaway that you could share with our listeners that would be valuable, what would that be?
What we learned, and we knew this over the last 4 or 5 years, members do not know how to run a country club. And unless you got a powerful general manager who takes control, we had general managers basically listen to a lot of the board members and our members, and we're trying to make everybody happy. Concert runs country clubs, and to get somebody in here who can run a club properly and free those of us who were volunteers working full time, it's a great feeling, and it's a great way to go.
Thank you guys so much for joining me on Private Club Radio. This edition of Board Chats, really enjoyed it. It's a different one, but to pull back the curtain and to see the different issues you had and how it all played out, that was really fascinating. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining me today. Hope you have a good one. Thanks for joining me here on Private Club Radio.
Yeah, thanks, Gabe. Thanks, you guys. That was terrific.
All right, thank you, Gabe.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that peek behind the curtain this week. Always fascinating for me to find out what happens inside these boardrooms and to really get into the psychology and the different challenges that are at play. I think that's really incredible, really special. You only get that here on Private Club Radio. I'll catch you back here next week. Until then, here's to your membership success.
Private Club Radio is brought to you by Concert Golf Partners, helping to preserve and enhance private golf and country clubs. Concert Golf has the capital, expertise and private club hospitality experience to help upscale private clubs achieving long-term success and membership growth. For 25 years, Concert Golf has allowed private club members to focus on simply enjoying their club. Visit concertgolfpartners.com to learn more about the recapitalization process.